It's official. Green is best. War Horde has passed the test. But what about the rest? It's time to get stuck in, lads. War! Green has come out on top. The Orks have won the top of the leaderboard for the moment, boys. Coming in with 4 winning GT events. It's fantastic. What a great time to be an Ork player. We're sitting at a 50% win rate. And I think Orks should just be excited about all the potential we have, because I know that for the most part right now, we're going to see that War Horde has, gotten everyone's attention, which is a good thing. I think War Horde is fantastic. It's always been fantastic. And actually, some of the things we're going to talk about today, we've seen that are almost somewhat classic, quote unquote, since the index. So we can talk about more how that matters to you as an Ork player. But like always, we're going to start with the stats and the facts. So we had a pretty productive, busy weekend. Like I said, four Ork winning events, but there's plenty of players, actually 12 in fact overall, that win at least X and 1 or X and O. 46% players, 46 players over the weekend. Sorry, we had 3 green tide players, but one of them did go X and 1. The hunt list came out there and actually went X and 1 as well at some event, 56% win rate, but there was only 2 players. We had War Horde sitting at 53% win rate, 5 X and 1 places, 3 GT wins, 21 players in total. And then Taktikal Brigade coming in second with 3 X and 1 placings, 1 GT win, shout out to that, which we're going to cover today, and then 10 overall players for them. More dakka had 2 players, 45%. Dreadmob had 6 players. 1 player did go X and 1. Shout out to you, Git. And 43% for Dreadmob. And then Bully Boy, someone did somewhere come out on 1 and 0 or X and 0. I didn't get to see where he was, but hey, shout out to the Bully Boys for making an appearance this side. Just about every Ork detachment. That's such a deep codex, you guys. You don't understand. One of the things that we really try to push here is that you take advantage of the depth of your codex and your army. If you look at, no offense to World Eaters, for example, that this past weekend or week, they were pretty in the uproar because they felt like they were gutted by that identity and really their options and their variety. In this case, even going after multiple nerfs, as GW has focused us the most in that sense, because we had such a deep codex itself and the amount of detachments that are actually playable, it means that for the most part, we've continued momentum. We're just not bullying the meta anymore. And that's fine. The meta chasers moved on to whatever is good. That's fine. But we have a bunch of very excellent Ork players in the community anyways. And that's just showing, right? So that's why we're going to talk about how those players are doing. We do actually have some notes from them, from one of the players who ended up going 6 and 0. So that's fantastic. But of course, let's get a shout out to today's sponsor, the Baron of Dice, who allows us to do our paint competition. So shout out to them for their high quality dice. Check them out in the description because 5% off, as nobody likes taxes. And shout out to Forgefire Gaming, high quality terrain with acrylic slotted bases where you can pick up and move the actual terrain pieces pretty freely and get proper measuring to get really practice those competitive games and events. So shout out to them. Check them out as well. So like I said, we're going to talk about one of the players who ended up going 6 and 0. This was Justin Moore. Shout out to him, as he did give us some notes. Whoa, and he kept it nice and concise. So this felt like a throwback to Index Hammer D gets, right? To you guys going on, what's up? Exactly, wall time, right? This is how this felt right now. One thing we're going to point out, I want to say, no gas on War Horde. And if you just remember, as of last week, we were talking about you play War Horde to play gas, some people would say. In this case, Justin stuck back down to the straight up index fundamentals, as even though, we were aware that gas was still efficient and good even in index for the most part, really index shined itself with this sort of archetype that we're going to show right here, but even better with the tweaks and adjustments and the additions that Justin had. So let's go over the list real quick and then some of his notes and thoughts. So I clicked something. With that being said, we have War Horde. We have a Beast Boss, a Death Killer War Trike with Super Cyborg Body, the most underrated enhancement combo right here in our entire book, in my opinion. as even in the Dictamer, people were letting it slide, and we were using it back the same way. And Justin, being a diehard Ork player, very proficient, good depth and understanding in the book, he went and took that nice tool out, and I actually absolutely love that. Giving the Death Killer War Striker for Feel No Pain on his 9 wounds is fantastic. He's what we used to joke as a baby Bosrog. He can be considered a distraction current effects, whatever you may see it to be. He's really a natural expansion grabber, right? You can use him to maybe harass the enemies in some cases. But as you can see, I'll just show he doesn't have any bikers. So he's using this Death Killer War Trike independently to go out and grab his natural expansion. I freaking love that. Really bold to not have bikers on there. I personally end up putting bikers on there. Don't knock it if you don't. I'm just saying that was pretty awesome to see that he ended up moving on with that. So then we have another kind of meat and potato unit right here that we keep seeing week in and week out that we constantly push for Ork players to understand the fundamentals of how to use these kind of units are a Pain Boy, War Boss, in a battle wagon with a 20-man unit of boys. Bam. Like I said, meat and potatoes. You can see this throughout and multiple detachments being used, and really it's one way that it's going to be used today as we talk about it as we go through his notes. Then we have 2 additional war bosses with no enhancements, and a 10-man unit of Snagga Boys, 3 trucks, 1 battle wagon with RDK, Slaba, Defrola, 2 units of Breaka Boys. So is this where Breaka Boys really shine, right? You know, tank busters, as you can see here, there's tank busters, but tank busters have been getting most of the attention, even though the data sheet came out. It's just because Breaka Boys do have some, you know, vulnerabilities as to the fact that they only have 2 attacks. War Horde lets you get the potential that you need out of them. So I absolutely love it. And I do find that you do want the War Boss. People ask me that all the time. Going to say it again right here. Yes, I like the War Boss. Not saying you always have to bring it. There is a sort of saturation that you could do with just all melee, but I do like that he incorporated dakka, which is we're going to cover next. But as for the Breaka Boys having the War Boss, absolutely. You need to offset any -1 that you may be going into when it's time to deliver this unit. You also want the proficiency of hitting on 2s with the sustained 6s or critical 5+. It really means that you need to deliver the volume, because wounding on 4s isn't necessarily that reliable, especially without any kind of rerolls to wound. And then you only have 2 AP on these smash hammers. Of course, you do have the tank hammer that, the smash hammer, the self-exploding devastating wound hammer. I messed their names up still. That one obviously can just pop off on the unit and just offset all the damage anyways, right? Bypassing the fact that you have low AP. But just for a fact, there's that you want the volume of hits to always go off, like we talk about as Orks around here. Is volume is king. So if you're ever in doubt, add 33% more to the odds that you need to kill someone. That's what War Horde allows the Breaka Boys to do that no other detachment really gives them access to do reliably. So I absolutely love that. Then we have 2 5-man units of flash kits for the SWAT team combos. We are going to talk about what everything's deployed here. 1 unit of Gretchen, and then 3 units of tank busters. So the tank busters, like we talked about and for several weeks, you don't necessarily need the character. Now, we do understand and know that the shock attack gun brings the value of the reliable damage, as he's the one who actually delivers it, as he gets more from them than they get from him most of the time. But when you just have them on your list, you now unlock the actual threat of some anti-tank, some anti-infantry, some more mortal wound spam from the bomb squigs, and the enemy has to account for these things, even if they're not reliably going to really damage him. Just having dakka with so much good attacks and volume and speed and punches and or model of units here is fantastic. Good OC on this list and everything. But as for how he actually deployed these units and where you put what, we had the battle wagon carrying the boys, of course. We had 2 trucks which were carrying the Breaka Boys with the war bosses and the flash kits as SWAT teams, and then the 3rd truck carried 2 units of tank busters. He had 1 unit of pretty much every game. Actually, all 6 games he had reserved his beast boss with his beast Snagga Boys, and then 1 unit of tank busters every game. That's what he did. Both of those units were constantly reserved. He was constantly ingressing the beast Snagga unit, and then he was obviously just bringing in the tank busters where he could get the best lines of sight to his preferred target of choice. Every game, of course, like we talk about, battle wagon stays right up in the middle, deployed as safely as possible that he can be. Death Killer Wartrike moves to the natural expansion. The three trucks would hide behind ruins along the flanks. We always talk about whenever you're starting to play with something that's central, as in if it's Gaz, a battle wagon, a Gork, a Mork, big, unit of whatever combination of you want it to be centralized for your army, Zagra, for example. The trucks are playing the flanks a lot of the time, right? Unless you're running the purest threat of 6 trucks, for example. A lot of the time your trucks are playing the flanks. Their strength is that they are such small units that can deliver multiple units onto the battlefield in small packages and keep them safe, right? One big unit of 10 flash kits is a larger profile than the truck itself that they are inside of. So it's really interesting that you need to play the flanks with them, obviously. And then as for how things would go, obviously he would use sorry, I gotta stop saying that. He was using this flash kits as his trading pieces. We talk about that all the time. And you need to get early. You need to actually tempo out your wall. Sometimes you can call early turn 2 walls, which we're going to talk about. But for the most part, you need to actually build into your list that you have some skirmishing pieces, some trading pieces, right? So that's where you can see the Death Killer Wartrike comes in place, the 2 units of flash kits, and then the trucks themselves were the units that he would be willing to put forward to create space, or just get, fighting for these objectives. Now, something I directly asked him, if you haven't noticed, the chat hasn't called out either. Where are the Storm Boys? Where are the Storm Boys at, Justin? Where the Storm Boys at? And that's what I asked him. I said, where are the Storm Boys at, yo? Even myself, I know I've dropped down to just using 1 unit of Storm Boys, but I feel naked if I don't have that 1 unit of Storm Boys. That's exactly what I said to him. And he said, no, I get it. I understand why you see that. But in his mind, based off where he's deploying his trucks and how he's utilizing his flash kits, he's really seeing it as he's only lost 3-inch movement on his lack of Storm Boys, because in his case, his trucks will be positioned and staged up in places where they can actually score objectives with just getting out, moving 6 inches for a 9-inch location spatial awareness, and then the truck itself can go out and move to a middle objective if it has to, and like disembark its cargo or whatever it may be, because really it's about when I can deliver this unit of boys up the field optimally is when my wall needs to be declared. Even though this list looks like a lot of, here's some cool trading Breaka boys that are really cool, and I got a bunch of tank busters. In reality, if you're the pilot of this list, the one vital piece on this list is that combination of the beast, the war boss, the pain boy, the battle wagon, and the 20 boys. That is the meat and potato core of this list. Because it really will hold it together in a lot of ways, so you can continue the damage and momentum. I'll talk about what he says about his changes he would put to this and his combos, but let's start going over his actual path to victory, his actual game. So I do have the notes, and they are a little short, but nice and concise. So let me pull this up because I was moving my fat head around. Boom. Here we go. Justin Moore. At the WarDome. So let's take a look at what the War Horde was getting into, right? So as for his first game, it was into Gene Stealers, which was on Mission G, which is the Ritual, Starwart, and Hammer, and Anvil. So he has the Reductus Saboteur, 3 of those gets. Then he had 5 units of the Hand Flamers, 6 hand units of the Flamers. And then it was about 3 more units of the hybrids, followed by 3 Goliath trucks, 2 individual Ridge Runners, followed by a 2-man unit of Ridge Runners, 2 small units of Jackals, 3 units of Goliath Ridge Runners. As for this game, he said that for the most part, the enemy just tried to move block him with all these Atalan Jackals, but he still decided to declare a wall. He ended up just getting a nice fat 6-inch advance on the boys when he disembarked, and they had follow me lads. So he moved 17 inches to move around the screen, and ended up wrapping 4 of his transports and ending the game quite quickly. Because the Gene Stealers don't have anything to really dig them out in this case, right, in this list. So he really didn't have any kind of reason to respect and actually play the tempo. Like I said, you have to understand that as the pilot of being an Ork pilot, every single game when you're playing your list and you're looking at the matchup, you go, I have 1 unit that really needs to be delivered this turn. Let's just say Zod. Most people we've been talking about and now aware of Zod. I really need Zod to be delivered here, right? Everybody knows that. I have gas. I really need gas to be delivered on my wall. When you have a 20-man unit of boys, that's still working the same way, even without gas support. For that reason, it's controlling the middle objective. It's not really just to kill, but it has the potential to shut down an enemy army. But you have to actually know when that matchup is most vital. In this case, understand that Gene Stealers and this list itself doesn't really have any way to really dig itself out. It just tries to kind of outmaneuver you and keep growing units and doing some kind of janky stuff. And in this case, he really couldn't put it off when you just stick so many units and OC bodies and pressure on this list and board control. A lot of the time when you're playing against another fellow Xenos type player, whether it's a Tyrannid or a GNC player, or even sometimes Necrons, not always because they're themselves. You have to understand that they're trying to play a similar game to you, where they're willing to trade their army for points. Therefore, it's up to you to take the space, right? Take the space, take the battlefield, and really close that gap as the Ork player, and not necessarily disrespect the army. But I'll tell you, when I overly respected the army, like Tyranids, for example, I ended up losing, and when I don't is when I have the most success. And that's what I always say about Gene Stealers. So that's the food for thought on that. And then we move on to his second game, where it was Mission A into a fellow Ork player on the Hunt. It was take and hold, raise banners at tipping point. So something that he mentioned here was that whoever wins second was a big deal. So let's just talk about the list before we mention that. We have a Beast Boss with Prop Killy and then Mazrog. So as you can see, there's no Glory Hog, which kind of surprised me. 3 10-man units of Snaggas, a 10-man unit of Boyz, 1 truck, a big brick of flash kits. Okay, yeah, I like that you brought the dakka. Good stuff, good stuff. Gretchen unit, 1 Hunter rig. Now that was different. Was there a 20-man unit that I missed here? No, he just had a bunch of 10-man units. Okay, that was different. Followed by 2 kill rigs, a Mando unit, 3 minimum size units of Squigs, and then a Storm Boy. So like I said, one thing that Justin mentioned right away was that in this matchup, it really mattered who wins second. He said he had a really big WAAAGH turn where the tank busters popped his transports, and because think about it, the tank busters are strength 10, and then they're willing to kill rigs on 3s, and then they don't have really invulns, so you just call the wall, so you can really just melt through them if they don't make those feel no pains. He said after the tank busters ended up popping the transports, his boys were able to charge what's inside and also jail him. And like we talk about with the hunt is actually about you getting momentum off, right? You kind of setting the tempo if you're the hunt player. So by him taking that away, it really just offset the game. I would see that being a hard matchup. Nonetheless, dude, you know, Justin's a great player, so my fellow Ork player out there, and War Horde is arguably like almost a better version, because even if you're executing your deliveries well, they're gonna fight on death, right? So I feel you on that. That'd be pretty rough, but they again holds a nice honest scrap. So shout out to you, Baguettes, both of you, and shout out to Ecop, my boy Ecop. What's up, homie? Oh, my slider, I might think I'm happy. What's up, homie? Whoa, do you get? And be on the lookout. Speaking of the hunt, for another video we're gonna do, talking about the hunt on the members streams, and of course to our other membership perks. So thank you very much, Ecop. Very supportive of you as always since the beginning. You get, and I've always been messing up your name, and you never correct me because you like watching me struggle. Shout out to you. You get. Yeah, so fantastic. And yes, the war bosses were with the Breaka boys. I love it. And we move on to his third game, because remember, there's a 6-game event. So if I'm going a little faster, it's for that reason, because we have 2 more undefeated Orks we got to get through, because it's exciting time to be a green boy. So we go on to his third game. Oop, all right, double-clicked. Which he ended up going to Gene Stealers again. I think it's crazy because just me seeing Gene Stealers once in a great while, I'm like, oh, cool, Gene Stealers, bro. And in this case, he's like, I see them both in one day. So this mission was Mission M, which was Purge the Foe, Rapid Escalation, and then Crucible of Battle. So he is Gene Stealers, Host of Ascension. So 3 Benefictus, whatever your name is, 1 Nexos, a Primus, and then probably 3 Reductus Saboteurs. Yeah, 3. 5 units of Ham Flamers, and then 5 units of the hybrid bricks, which is pretty awesome. 1, 2, 3. Yeah. That's what he said in his notes too, just looking at that. 2 individual Ridge Runners, followed by 2 Pure Strain Geo Stealers. So he thinks he's playing against Tide, baby. And like we just talked about, what do you got to do in Gene Stealers chat? What do you got to do? You got to run up in their face and disrespect them a little bit, right? So as for his notes, what he said, I'm not saying disrespect them because they can't beat you. I'm saying disrespect because you gotta take the ground from them, because they're gonna start coming back. He said, He ended up picking up 2 units of the Neophyte bricks, but then he ended up, the enemy player, Eric, ended up resurrecting one of those units that he ended up beating him down. Then on the following turn, he came down with 80 and killed half of his army. So those hybrid that we were talking about here, the Neophyte hybrids that come down, they came down, ended up just killing half his army. But with the other half of his army, he turned around and tagged all 4 of the Neophyte hybrids with his trucks and his remaining battle wagons, which takes him out of the game because those units cannot fall back and charge or fall back and shoot or anything like that. This is something that also you should be aware of if you're a green tide. That is a very similar weakness and vulnerability that most people don't take advantage of. So shout out to you, because that was very wise of you, actually, Justin, because that's one of the weaknesses I talk about when you're playing Green Tide, for example, is if the enemy gets into contact with your boys, too many sides of your boys unit, and you start being stretched too thin on your casualty count, but you're not really regrowing enough on the objective because the enemy has too many, let's say, vehicles there, but they're still slowly whittling you away turn by turn. That's a weakness because you're not engaging them and holding them in place where you want to be. And so if he was able to engage with them on the flanks of the battlefield, away from the objectives, or maybe keeping them to their own natural expansion, then he can just hold the other and kind of skirmish out the rest of the battlefield. So if he comes down, killed beast bosses and kills trucks and multiple flash gets units, that's fine, because the Breaker boys can still go around and beat up pure strains and ridge runners, and the tank busters can still kind of die and try to kill hold space as well and hold those points in scoring secondary. So remember, when you're playing against GSC, even when you have to take that onslaught like he did, where he just knew that those 2 units, those new 2 big bricks, were kind of like bait. You think he didn't know? Of course Justin knew. He knew that he knew he had to pick them up, because if you respect them too much, then they're just going to regrow those units even closer to you, and they're going to just have too much momentum and take position on the field where you can't dig them out and where you want them to. So in this case, Justin chose to take it on the nose, a hard nose it on the forehead, like a nice proper Ork war boss, and in that case, he was rewarded with a proper victory there as well, getting a 92-point win. Sorry, missed over that. I'm off ahead. 92-point win from Purge the Foe. Yeah, so especially on Purge the Foe, dude, you got to get up on them, because he has a bunch of skirmishing kind of trading stuff here. So if he just sits it out and loses units too early, if Justin loses too many of the units, like slow pace, because he respects them, right? So he's losing all these little trade skirmishes, and the guy's just slowly regenerating these big units and getting them closer, marching them down the field. When he declares the WAAAGH turn 3 from maybe that excellent perfect WAAAGH, well, it's too late now, because he doesn't have enough assets to dig out those guys and retake those primary. So great job there. That was a good call for that round. Another super supporter here, Mr. Andrew Stone, punching teeth out for the win. Whoa, for the $20 super chat. Super supportive as always, you crazy git. Thank you very much. It's very, very humbling and encourages us to keep going. And thank you for supporting it. I've killed dark over here on this side, which is fine because you can't see the shine on my forehead. But we did lose a light, so thank you. We've got a new light bulb now. Whoa, to Mr. Andrew Stone. You very supportive git. Much love, much love. And we'll be back with that, sir. Don't worry. We'll get back to you. And then we go into round 4. So for round 4, we have, this was mission P, which was Scorched Earth, Inspired Leadership, and Crucible of Battle. You guys know how you like that inspired leadership, right? Very impactful. So we have the Aspect Host. We have an Artark, 2 Artarks, Slilax and Spirit Seer, a Wave Serpent, 3 units of Fire Dragons, a big brick of Howling Banshees, which do have fight first. The combo, we have a small unit of Howling Banshees followed by Rangers, 2 5-man units of Scorpions, another 5-man unit of Warp Spiders, big 6-man unit of Wind Riders, followed by triple Wraith Lords. Like the assets on this list. Normally I'm not into Eldar list. This one, all right, I like Wraith Lords, a little biased, like a little cool Dreadnought wannabes. And then as for Scorched Earth, right? Scorched Earth against Eldar can end up being a little tricky, because if you decide to play the long game and they play second, they kind of can get the advantage on primary at the end, and usually they're doing quite well on secondaries. So my git had to be aggressive, like we like to talk about, which he knew, which is why he said turn 4 what he did, he basically bum rushed him. I know this sounds funny as an Ork player. Like if you're watching this and you're like, wow, how do the top players think? He said I bum rushed him. That's how he worded himself, and that's correct. And that's something that sometimes we need to understand as Orks is when you're playing War Horde, it's about imposing your will, especially with these 20-man units of boys and the saturation of units you have. When you're at your max capacity like that, there are the proper times to just overload the enemy and not really let them do their shenanigans. And when you're talking about his path to victory between Gene Stealers and Eldar, this is very much about the pilot could throw away these games by being intimidated by these units' shenanigans and not deciding to over respect them, right? So in this case, he knew he couldn't really do that, especially like we talked about with Scorched Earth, necessarily. So he said, I basically bum rushed him where two boys came from the left and actually got into contact with his fight first unit of Banshees. But another unit of Breaker Boys came from the right and forced that big 10-man unit of Banshees that had fight first to split their attacks and fight both units that were on the flanks, on the sides of this Banshee unit that he made contact with. So it couldn't kill enough. And so they killed the Banshees in response. In regards to the big 10-man unit of Boys, because remember, they're the Stagger Boys 2 on the list, but the big man unit of Boys ended up getting tagged in 2 Wraiths, Wraith Lords, and his big unit of bikes and his Wave Serpent, pinning them in place. So, like we talked about, because the enemy was respecting him, as for he had tank buses, he had flash kits, he had some dakka, to be able to impose your will and like where they can actually stay in, right? There's a factor that we didn't have, just that we straight up didn't have, guys, that I really want to stress here as we're going through this, is we didn't have anti-tank shooting. So people could just straight up stand in firing lanes and just overwatch us all day, or just set up screens and know that we have almost nothing to deal with them besides overcosted things that they're trying to kill the little screens, and then their tanks got to just continually shoot at us anyways, right? So even though we were able to hit hard ish without Breaker Boys, for example, that's why tank busts are so impactful. It's really about where does the enemy actually place themselves on the battlefield now, instead of just disrespecting you and just taking up spaces in the firing lanes. That means your boy unit, when he goes off, now can actually pile in and tag these kind of concentrated little pockets. How else would he get 2 Wraith Lords, a Wave Serpent, and a unit of bikes? Well, they're staged up behind a terrain piece because he knows that the tank busters can simply disembark from this one truck. Both of them get out and then focus fire something down, end up get lucky. And even a tank buster unit itself can survive a little bit of small arms fire, can get stuck in and actually start fighting because they're actually knobs. And Eldar really can't go with the combined arms aspect sometimes. And if they do, they can kind of, if they don't roll good enough, they just end up getting picked up, because Ork units, even when they're kind of hurt, they can still do well. So even though it sounds kind of like he simplified it too much, that totally actually made perfect sense to me when you're looking at the mission and what he was going into. You really just need to remember that he's really taking into fact that enemies cannot fall back and shoot and charge. Therefore, it's not that I'm avoiding the units that can kill me. It's I'm making contact with them first, so that I get the initiative and I'm fighting them in places I want to be fighting them in, as well as, you know, not allowing them to be in, even cross that center line of the battlefield, so they can't be scoring their secondaries either, which is good when to purge the foe, to stop him from doing that, because it's kind of easy primary game mission. Then we go on to round 5, where he goes into mission L, which is taking a hold. Hidden supply, sorry, and then search and destroy. My own notes were ugly right there. And then, of course, this was Sisters of Battle. So we have the Hallowed Martyrs. How do you guys feel about Sisters as Ork players? Huh? Do you guys actually really appreciate them or what? We have Canoness with Jump Pack, Judith, and then Morganval. 1 unit of Sisters. Kind of cool how they can like split apart and kind of throw the little units, their special weapons in 1 unit. 2 emulators, 2 rhinos, a big brick of Arcoflagellants. So these guys can actually go off on boys. You guys know that as Ork players. They're twin linked, nice volume of punches, even though they don't got AP. Maybe I'll pull up the dash sheet, just because I feel like I always go like, oh, that would suck for the boys to go into. Maybe I should have had this up already, but I'm sorry, guys. Normally I'm on it when I normally have that. Yeah, that's what I thought. They do have like an 8 sustains. So these gets 4 attacks apiece, sustain. and then they can actually decide to go haywire, kind of crazy with their trigger word, I guess. And they get 6 attacks each base, and then sustain. Oh, they're not made. They're not twin linked. Was I tripping? I guess I am. Oh, sorry guys, I was tripping. I thought they were twin linked before, huh? And then a 5 feel no pain. So I guess not as intimidating as I thought. That's that's Steelers. Oop, that's all there. Not my really start. All right. What's up? Hey, what's up, Wicked Joe? Whoa, you back, homie? Huh? I told you better not be running from the wall just because Orks got nerfed. Look at that. We won 4 events, doing a great time playing War Horde. You were playing War Horde, you get. All right. So we have Castigators, 2 of them, followed by a Paragon Warsuit, Repentia, Sister Novitiates, and then a Caladius Assassin. So he actually did have some respect for the sister player because he's aware of him. Of course, we're actually here around 5. So the sister player obviously had to know what he was doing to get this far. He said he basically still applied the same pressure like we talk about with these armies that are going to be aren't going to devastate us too hard. You got to get in their face. But he's also, because they have kind of these transports, right? Transport vehicles. He has 4 sorts of transports and then 2 castigators. You really need to kind of stop those guys from disembarking where they want to if you can help it, and you want to keep them in place while your tank busters take out what else you want them to shoot at, which in this case he said that where it ended up helping was being able to pop off at the Morgan Vol unit before it got to shoot through and shoot anything at his big unit of boys. So pretty much he applied a bunch of pressure. He was able to kill Morgan Vol. He rapid ingressed his Beast Snagga boys and Breaka boys on the opposite unit, where his big unit of boys had gotten off and made all his charges after they disembarked. So in this case, like, he made a decision again to be quite aggressive. When you're playing take and hold, it is very easy to get primary. So in this case, it does behoove you to play aggressive, but also hidden supplies, because you really don't know when you're starting off the game where it's going to benefit you. So it was really nice that he just said, well, I put both assets on both sides because my boys are going to win on this side, and then the rest of my army is going to win on the other side. I thought it was a great job by that. He simplified it a bit too much. Not that it's like his fault. I'm just saying, like, for Ork players to simply know, like, man, sisters do have some of the teeth. It's just not as efficient as like Space Marines. So him making the call of I'm just going to get in their face, kind of like Eldar, was correct. As they usually take kind of several rounds and phases between shooting and fighting to kill you. So if you can get the initiative to just actually destroy Morgan Vol because they have all the blast profiles from their rocket frag launchers and they fight pretty well, in that case, nothing's going to really dig out your boys efficiently enough between the 5-up invul and the 5-up feel no pain. And then the rest of your unit's just going to beat the crap out of them, continue to score because you have a bunch of trucks, wagons, and you still have the flash kits, which are really annoying for an army of T3 sisters. Which is awesome. So then we move on to his 6th game, which was against the Death Watch. And this was mission I, which was burden of trust, prepared positions, and search and destroy. So I'm not going to pretend like I know exactly what they do anymore. I did have a Death Watch army, but it's changed, but still things stay the same, like the name of the enhancements. So we had a captain in Gravis armor, chaplain, lieutenant with combi, and then a chapter or watchmaster, excuse me. 1 brick of Death Watch veterans plus an intercessor squad, followed by 2 units of assault intercessors with jump packs, a Fortis kill team, 2 of them. 3 Fortis kill teams. Which, let me see, are these guys? I said I was going to look at it, but now I'm looking at it. Okay, Fortis kill teams are just like the intercessor squads. That's why they're only like 200 points, I think, right? Yeah, so pretty cheap. They're like fancy intercessor squad with extra profiles. That's kind of cool if I was to see it. Indomitor kill team, followed by 2 of those Indomitor kill teams. 2 Indomitor kill teams, and then 3 Fortis kill teams, followed by a Death Watch veteran squad, which is just a big unit of Death Watch veterans. So it's just a big army of just Space Marine T4 power armor bodies for the most part. And as for his notes on this, he said that it made a big mistake on screening and ended up allowing him to get his big brick of melee intercessors in his field. He inbred the Beast Snagga boys. He ended up popping the battle wagon in melee, and killing a truck and the unit of tank buses and flash gets in him. But in response, he was able to call the wall and charge the rest of his army. Yeah, and then Winby had all of the rest of his army on the objectives, and he had actually done the clapback. The enemy didn't have enough momentum anymore to push off the trucks, the remaining trucks and the remaining small units that had invulns and the boys all at once. So after he took his pound of flesh, even though it was a mistake, to allow them even get in the position to do that, really because of how this army kind of operates, he had to end up popping the big transports in combat, which you know what that means as an Ork player. Well, that means next turn I get to just go into you and kind of freely beat the crap out of you, which if you're an army of mostly just Space Marine bodies, it's not going to go well because Orks just having a volume of punches is very fantastic. So he said he couldn't deal with those 2 units of Breaka boys, and he couldn't deal with the remaining units of Boyz and Snaggas. So that's fantastic. And shout out to him because then he ended up winning that one with a 58-point win. But research and destroy, burn, and trust. I mean, no infiltrators, maybe, huh? No, I'm just kidding. So it was 95, 95, 92, 96, 100, and then a 58 for the final one with a nice big whoa for Justin Moore. He had a Beast Boss, Death Killer War Trike, Pain Boy, Triple War Boss, 10 man unit Snaggers, 20 man unit of Boys, 3 trucks, 1 battle wagon, 2 Breaka boys, 2 flash kits, 1 Gretchen, triple tank buses, 2 tank buses win, 1 truck, 1 tank bus to win reserve, Snaggas, and Beast Boss went into reserve as well. The Breaka boys and flash kit combo with the War Boss attached to the Breaka boys ended up going into 2 SWAT team trucks that played the Frankston perimeter. And that's pretty much how this went. Most of the stuff was off the field or in transports. That way, no one could ever take a chunk of flesh out of him too early. And if they did, it was typically just 1 truck, or maybe if they got lucky, like he spoke about when he missed position with the Death Watch, that they can kill the truck and the transport. But everything else is kind of fast enough now to respond, especially if now he calls the wall, which is a huge change for War Horde itself. The fact that War Horde was already fantastic because you could fight on death, artist nails, sustain hits, everything Orks like to do. The fundamentals of what it is to be an Ork, great enhancements and stratagems. But now we can declare the wall on our own initiative. And that's a huge, huge change that I cannot allow people to overlook and stress. This is why everybody said this detachment was going to be the best. Now, I don't prescribe necessarily everything Ork players should do because I'm in the camp of I don't necessarily like playing War Horde that much at the moment because I like to play other stuff and diversity. But the appeal of how good War Horde is into that meta is undeniable with just the additions of the WAAAGH change and then attuned data sheets, right? That's why the Grotman stuff never really affected me as well. Because if we were paying attention to how Orks have been doing, like we do around here, you knew we were already in a really good spot before Grotmas happened, before GW decided they want to make money. I mean, make detachments. You know, we were in a really good, healthy spot where we could just kind of really appreciate where Orks were already good at. And then we got the WAAAGH change, and then we got the tank buses and the Breaka boys for the damage 3. That already gave us so much. It was just the dakka, more dakka and tactical brigades being so strong were almost like gluttonous. So it's all good. I think we still have playing all those detachments as well. But shout out to Justin Moore for sticking to the meat and potatoes of what it is to be an Ork, understanding what we've been good at since the beginning and what we're so good at, having the confidence in it to take it to a big event and going 6-0. And thank you for the notes you get. And we move on. So now we move on to Mark Morrow with the Broadsword Wargaming ITC seasonal major, where he took the Taktikal Brigade, my gits. So someone's out here getting tactical and cunning, huh? But be on the lookout for that. Orks with brains and commandos and wearing camouflage. Let me pull it up over here. So let's look at his list. I will say now, some of you guys are gonna be like, I'm familiar with this, and that's okay, because we're seeing that even without the secondary orders, this is fantastic. So this event was in Ireland. So can Taktikal Brigade, the real question in here is, can Taktikal Brigade hold up to War Horde? Can Taktikal Brigade kind of keep its place at least as number 2? Or is it really just going to be a fluke? So this was in Ireland. Yeah. So from what I've seen, they were playing on the WTC terrain. Yep. Okay, cool. Yeah, I wish I could have seen the mission pack, but I can't. All right, cool. It's okay. I got too excited. So we have 2 beast bosses. Triple Big Mac with shock attack on Zagra or Snaga. Still kept the Zag up in there. Crazy. And then we have a Big Mac in mega armor with, of course, Mac Captain as the Warlord. All right. So some cool things here. The beast bosses. Absolutely love that you're combined arming it. And like I constantly bring up to people, the beast boss is not the same if you don't have sustain. That simple. That simple. When you talk to me about him and Bully Boys, the only semi-appealing thing there is that he can re-roll the wound possibly with Ed Stompa. That's appealing if you can get it off circumstantially. But getting sustain is what really brings the most value out of the beast boss, as you can re-roll and fish for the 6s and really peak his potential. Now you do have the access also more dock where you can reroll wounds, so it's kind of also appealing as well. But all in all, sustained and this allows you to bring nice combined armed assets that don't rely on the wall, that still allow you to play primary games and flip primaries if you don't necessarily kill your full target. They have a diverse profile of killing a bunch of screens or to being anti-armor. Now they aren't ideal into elite infantry, but other units on your list hopefully are. So then we have Zagra, which I wanted to point out. Yes, Zagrat's still on the menu, and I've been saying he still has a place even in Taktikal Brigade. Why is that? Because you can give him another OC, and because you can allow him to fall back, shoot, and charge. So if Zod goes off and the enemy decides I'm just going to ignore that stupid unit, and I can simply just put enough OC on there, kill just enough of them that I don't care, well then fine, I'll ignore them. You can't do that if they can pump every single grout up to another OC and they can fall back and charge and re-engage and do the same thing they just freaking did. That cannot be allowed. Absolutely cannot be allowed, which means you directly impact the choices your enemy is going to make when you declare the wall if they haven't mitigated your Zod, which it looks like for Mark, they never did. So that's really where it comes into play. So I don't have the missions for him, but one I can just simply bring up in mind is if you're playing the ritual, for example, the enemies typically want to stand back and hold their position, and you as a tactical brigade cunning you're going to slowly methodically make your place up the field, redeploy if you can. He doesn't have the redeploy enhancement, but other people might. You're going to play with the reserves, and you're going to move your way up the field kind of strategically. In this case, now, if you have Zod, that means, well, you know where the enemy is going to put some of their resources, and you're going to go over there and steal their objective. Even if they dwindle you down to 5 Grots and Zod, I'm going to just give myself more OC, just going to fall back and charge and steal something else. It's obnoxious, it's outrageous, and I love it. And Zod's just where it's at when you really figure out how to touch multiple objectives with them. So we have 4 trucks, and then of course the Big Mac Captain. Let's go. There's nothing like it, at least for us. Like we can see, re-rolling hits for something on Overwatch is freaking fantastic. Getting additional shot because it's the closest target, boom, is fantastic. The fact that he loves every single pretty much stratagem that we have is in this detachment is awesome too. It gives us that kind of combine arms additionally that we don't have. So if half your list is tank busters, kind of shooting units like we're going to see here, and then the other half is punching units, well, Flaggers fall right there in the middle where they're going to shoot and punch. Love it. Then we have the big 2 Grot units, obviously. One's a big one, one's a small one, minimum sized. And then 2 5-man units of Ludas plus 1 10-man unit of Ludas. So yes, that was pretty gangster. Now, at first, I was like, what the heck? Because he has 3 tank busters. And you're obviously going to put the Big Mac with shock attack guns on the tank busters. Yes. But if you're used to playing Dread Mob or more dakka, whatever you were playing, you also know that you can kind of stage up with your tank busters and not necessarily always have them be inside the transports, because you can just pop through the terrain to get line of fire on what your optimal targets are. That means you can have a unit of at least 1 tank buster unit kind of be on the field where the looters primarily are staged up, and you can drip feed at least that 1 10-man unit of Ludas, right? So that 1 10-man and Ludas, when they walk out to the middle objective and people start doing their trades, turn 1, turn 2, well, 10-man unit of Ludas with +1 a hit if they're going to shoot on that objective, that's cool. But then you can re-roll hit. But if they're not, then you can just +1 to hit them, and then they're just shooting people up. Fantastic. I absolutely love that. And if you want to fight, if you could have given them a different order, +1 strength, if they're standing objective, you could choose to do both, because let's say you want to put bodies on the objective. Cool. Area now. Here we go. Ludas. Get up, charge, get up there. So there are options you can do with that. And then the 2 5-man units, I can see them as coming off the table edges and just kind of getting off more shots, just because your list is already kind of shooting, and having just bodies, it usually comes down to points. So I think the 2 5-man units of Luda is pretty awesome, pretty tight pick. Normally don't go for 2. 1, I understand, but 2, that was a nice, unique pick, and I would like to hear more about that. It could be just that it was on the missions. The layout. If he's playing WTC missions layout, then that means there's kind of like different lines of fire and more condensed boards. So these 5-man units might easily be able to actually jump out and just look at the objective and get shot at them, or getting from the battlefield, from table edges, right? We didn't go over the Squig City list. That's next. Yeah, Squig City list was pretty dope too. Okay, I see you, Brett. I'm gonna mention you in a second. So as for this, absolutely loved Mark's list. The 4 trucks, he's not playing on GW layout. That's why he's not bringing like a battle wagon, for example, obviously. So our SWAT teams, our ability to fit something just as fat as a 10-man unit flash gives with a Big Mac is a huge benefit to you as an Ork player. But I cannot stress, don't forget about strategic reserves and rapid ingress, right? Not everything on this list can obviously go in a truck, as he only has 4 trucks. Therefore, clearly he at least had one of these units of beast bosses and reserves, and probably a tank buster unit, if not multiple Luda units instead. So I actually love it. Absolutely love it. So let's go over his actual path to victory. I don't have notes from this get. So then, yeah, let's see. I actually do want to reply to this guy. He said, "Hey man, I'm gonna reply to you because World Eater's a little sad right now. Hey man, I'm a World Eater player disappointed by my new codex and looking to get into Orks. My main concern is the pain of rolling a ton of inefficient ranged dice. Do you find this annoying?" Yeah, that's actually a good question. As for what you feel about World Eaters, I totally understand it. I think the demon skin's pretty sick, but that does change your identity, because now you're bringing a bunch of demons. It's almost like playing two different factions. Kind of annoying. I totally understand it. And Orks and World Eater players family get along, as long as you don't say blood for the blood god around us. We're fine. So as for your question, what I would say is choosing when you're going to shoot your actual dice, when you're going to actually decide that it's worth using and rolling. For example, I'm not going to just stick my 10-man unit boys out and start throwing pistols, shoot pistol shots, and all my grot pistol shots, and every single big shooter shot. Now, as a high-level player, if you really need to a certain outcomes, you have to know when it matters and when you should, yes. But not throughout the whole game, not every single time, not every single interaction, especially as you're getting used to the unit count and saturation count. So the only units that you really need to focus about shooting them for are the designated shooting units that we talk about on the channel that will assist you in that. And of course, kind of helping yourself by having more World Eater-esque type of centralization of your army. So we'll talk about that later, but that's a good question for a future video. Now let's talk about his path to victory, because Mark Morrow, right, ended up going off here. So his first game on his path to victory was the Blood Angels. And this was is this gonna be no Blood Angels, because they have the Gladius Task Force? Is that combined arm shooting? So we have Captain and Gravis armor with Artificer armor, Judicia, 2 Ballistic Dreadnoughts, a big brick of Blade Guard veterans, 2 Lancers, a Reaper, double Reapers, here we go, Inceptors, Infiltrators, Scout Marines, and then double Vindicators. Huge factor here for you to understand as an Ork player when you're going into any Space Marine player that does not understand the Gladiator Reapers are awesome, is that your benefit is that your unit that's within that transport cannot be declared for an oath target. That means these Reapers are not going to devastate you in Overwatch with these unit with be able to target those units that are within transports with Overwatch as effectively, but they really can still hurt them. It's a big deal. Now, as soon as you see these guys on the field, understand their lines of target where they're going to actually be able to Overwatch you as an Ork player. Some of your units, for example, like the Ludas or the Tank Busters, can't really afford to take Overwatches. Something that can take at least a little bit, if it's not Oath, would be maybe a unit of Speed Snagga Boys. If you're going to deliver the Snaggas to the Reaper itself, there's a chance that, you know, he might kill, you know, 4, 5 even of them if they're not Oath. And you have to sometimes endure that, knowing that the Snagga boss can kind of finish him off. But in more cases than not, if you are Oathed, and let's say you got disembarked and he's, you know, or whatever it may be, and he's Oath one of those units, now it comes to you being a cunning git as to, I'm going to move everything else before that one unit I know you want to overwatch, and then I'm not going to move that unit. Right? There's sometimes that can be a play itself. So you have to keep that in mind when you're going into this. Other than that, this matchup does get a little bit kind of straightforward, as the fact that he has the tank busters being able, and the beast snaggas is a lot of good, reliable anti-tank potential. And where you end up taking up the Big Mac and Mega Armor, if he ends up committing to that unit and just whiffs because the invuln, there's a good chance. And in my case, I personally think that if you're using the Big Mac and Mega Armor now, there's a good argument for just not taking the +1 to hit order and just giving yourself stealth, so that that unit can kind of tank and withdraw more of clapback and then regen and continue doing what it wants to do in its positioning on the battlefield. Because it's so impactful when you can deliver that where it wants to be, which is typically wherever the biggest, broadest position is to shoot multiple objectives with Overwatch. So then we move on to his second game. Absolutely love that, taking out the no blood angels in his first game. Then we go into the second game where he goes into Tyranids Assimilation Swarm. Ooh, this is a good one. You got to be aggressive here, but you typically don't want to. So we got a Brood Lord, Hive Tyrant, Neuro Tyrant, Biovores, Big Brick of Gene Stealers, Pyrovores, Big Brick of Zoanthropes, Ripper Swarms, Exocrine, Double Norn Assimilator, 2 Psychophages, and Tyrannocyte. High scoring game where he ended. Oh, yeah, I was about to say, yeah, 96-point win on this. So, you know what I'm gonna say, as I'm very sure of, what's quite impactful on this game was Zod. Zod had to be quite impactful on this game, either because he was able to kind of endure and screen this Brood Lord that he has and the big units of James Taylors with them, or maybe he was using the Ludas for that, or because now when the Norn either tries to get into the position or never, or if it did, Zod could play a big impact here on this battle, right? Because if you end up going first and you decide, I'm going to, let's say, search and destroy, and I can just go touch the Norn assimilators and not allow them to actually get on the objective and get their feel no pains off, well, then I might have just won the game right there. And even if they did get into a position, because I can give myself +1 OC and these guys are so small, Norns aren't really good at killing large volumes of bodies, well, in that case, there's a good chance that even if he has 2 of them on there, I might be able to actually still flip that objective with simply enough Grots and Zod staying alive and then me giving that unit +1 OC. Now, you do have to worry about passing shadows, of course. There's so much different things that can happen here, but just looking at the score, I have a good opinion that happened. Plus, the Tyranid player still has to respect the fact that you have 3 tank bosses and 2 beast bosses on this list. So when it is that go turn, if he does overly commit because he thinks he's going to try to tank you or try to just flip that objective back, well, then you get to take your pound of flesh cleanly, and that's what it looks like it did for that 96-point win. Freaking love it. I don't know what the mission is, but I can definitely see that game playing out like that, right? Because I own Tyranids too. That's one of my other armies that I still have. So we move on to his third game, where it is Astra Militarum, which is one of my other armies that I like. So we have Canadian command squads, Gaunt's Ghost, Tempest's command squad, 2 Rogodorn commanders, and then Ursula Creed. We have a Keaton shock troop, 2 units of Ketochan jungle fighters. I was checking if they're 20-man units, but they are not. But they do have 2 bricks of the Death Core of Krieg. Now, I do actually, think this is the preferred brick because they get the feel no pain, they get to regen some dudes, they get a 6 of feel no pain. I like that. I think it's not reliable, but appreciative. Didn't he bring? No. Okay. Just checking. Then we got 1 unit of Adeline Rough Riders, a Hellhound, 2 Lehman Russ battle tanks, and then 1 brick of Tempestus Scions. As for how does this one go out, I mean, I personally think that this is where you understand that giving your whole army stealth helps offset this. This is where we talked about having a unit of beast bosses and knowing that, hey, I actually have something that could really clap on that big 20-man unit of Death Corps of Krieg. Now, you might be thinking, well, I don't want to hit a 10-man unit of Death Corps of Krieg with my beast boss. That's lame. Yes, I understand that. I totally do. That's where understanding that you can pile in and still fight a tank that's near it with the beast boss come into play. So let's say a Leman Russ is being screened by the unit of Death Corps Krieg to a degree, but you get a nice big 9-inch charge off on it. Well, you can position yourself into a way that you can still pile into the Leman Russ with your beast boss and have the 10-man unit still clap the Death Corps of Krieg squad while your Flashgate unit claps another unit of Death Corps of Krieg, right? Or you can just dwindle down that screen and then pick the rest of it up with the snaggers themselves. So the fact that, yes, in this kind of list, you don't have ideal targets every single time because, a Leman Russ might not be at your exposure when this guy can put 20-man units out on the field, but you understand that you have tank busters and you still have multiple units of Ludas that can kind of go and pick up his other skirmishing type units like his Adalins, or even if I have to, I can shoot at his jungle fighters, his command squads, whatever it may be, Gaunt's ghosts if they end up getting too aggressive. So I love it. I love that he actually still has some of the value assets. And like I said, when you're looking at using Taktikal Brigade here, it's more about understanding that you have assets that can take advantage of multiple phases of the game and that you have assets for when your just general core stratagems are going to be important, and when sometimes you're just going to pick stealth the vast majority of the time, you're not going to complicate things, and understand that the 5-up invuln, the stealth, and just your WAAAGH capabilities themselves are what are going to carry you in some matchups. And I feel like in that one, there's a good chance that just pretty much putting stealth on a lot of things are going to make a big difference. Then we move into his fourth game, where we have the Black Templar. So we have Castellan, High Marshal Helbrecht, Lieutenant. One big brick of Crusaders, two big bricks of Crusaders, followed by an Intercessor squad, one Ballistas Dreadnought, one Lancer, a Repulsor Executioner, a Land Raider, a brick of Sword Brethren, followed by a small unit of Sword Brethren, and a Scout squad. So a bunch of killer missiles out here. Missile type units out here where everything wants to kill you and get a chunk of flesh. Love that there's bricks of Primaris command squads. This actually looks like a very exciting, fun game. For this game, I'd really love to know what the mission was. But what I do also know is that those Primaris command squads do think and want to think they can stand on an objective in front of you, which is where you find great value. And I happen to have 20 Ludas on this list. That way I know, right? We know, because this guy is low on assets as the Black Templar player. We know that he's low on what he can actually put out onto the objective. And we know that his gun lines are going to be gunning. They're going to be sitting back. His transport's going to be holding them Sword Brethren. And then he's going to be chucking those big bricks out into the middle of the field, hoping he can get enough commitment out of you. And then he's going to just his essentially Black Templar wand to you and put everything in your face and shoot you to bits and charge you down. In this case, this is where you can say, I can actually skirmish it and duke it out with some of those guys, which is where I have a bunch of Ludas. I have a bunch of Ludas. I have flash kits. I don't have to necessarily close that threat range necessarily that fast. And if you disrespect me and put the gun lines in place to pick those guys up, well, then I get tank busters out. I get to pick up your tanks, and then now we're just duking it out. Not to mention that you have Zodrog. So Zodrog can actually end as a big kind of umbrella where he can actually kind of keep everything else off you as you do respawn and shoot his tanks down. Well, if you think, well, then he's going to disembark and charge me, or he's going to run through the terrains at me, Zod comes into play and he kind of withhold some of those damage, and then you get to continually keep shooting at these guys, and then possibly combined arm charge and shooting into them at the end that they dwindle. And that would be a really cool game to witness, though. Like I like it a lot, but I didn't mean to simplify it like that, but you can see how 93-point win there on that one, right? That was his fourth one. Yeah, that was his fourth one. 93-point win there. So he's scoring big on all these games, but as an Ork player, you understand that when people typically want to get a commitment out of you, and when you can actually end up trading up with that, that's really, really good for you as an Ork player. So being able to stay out of his charge combined arms threat range with the tank buses, or and baiting it, because you're going, well, you can just expose some of your tanks to me, to my flash kit unit now a little bit. Can't charge them and fully pick them up, but I'm going to regen a couple dudes back, and then I'm going to still be there to kill you, and all my tank bosses are going to respond too. So I love it. Not to mention, of course, you have beast bosses coming in from reserve, so he makes room for Zod, makes room for that as well. So Zod's just awesome, and I love that he used it, because Zod's keeping that space for this gun line. Then he goes into his last but not least matchup, the Be'lakor. So he went to Be'lakor for this Shadow Legion. So we have, Be'lakor, Bloodthirster, Exalted Flamer, Red Master on Blood Throne, 6 Nurglings, 10 Plague Bearers, Flamers, Seekers, Screamers, a big brick of AC/DC Accursed Cultists, with the Jump Pack Chaos Terminator and a Cultist Mob, followed by a Dark Commune and some Raptors. Yeah, and that's it. Now you can see right away that this is his lowest scoring game. Lowest scoring game because something that we talk about here, like I was just saying how Zod can kind of create that distance. Well, it sure would suck for you as an Ork player if they had something that could really threaten Zod, which is the Accursed Cultist unit. The Accursed Cultist unit can get enough volume attacks, and they can kind of withstand Zod themselves too, where they can run down Zod with their advance and charge once per game and kind of beat you up. They have the Dark Commune with them. Therefore, and they have the Nurglings to kind of have as their infiltration, creating that space for you. So yeah, this is a more complicated matchup than has been going. And as we talk about tank busters, typically when you're going into stuff that doesn't have invulns, it's fantastic for the shock attack gun. So Be'lakor, though, making it so, 1, you're gonna have a much harder time getting into the targets you want to get to, but 2, now you're going in from 4 to 4s. Right, you're going from I'm hitting on 4s to wounding on 4s, and then they're saving on 4s. That can very much go either way. And it usually takes multiple units of tank busters to reliably take down one of these greater demons. So this game does take a little bit more of patience, timing, and understanding when you're going to actually make your commitments here. You're not going to simply say, I'm going to stealth the whole army, right? Because he has flamers anyways. He has flamers on the units that are shooting for him, and then he has a bunch of fast punching out units and his own defensive buff himself. So this might be a game where you're giving yourself +1 strength for weird demon toughnesses, or that you're giving yourself reroll charges when it's that really go time. +1 to hit if you're just going into just this little smaller kind of demon-esque sort of units. But I absolutely love having a Big Mac and Mega Armor with the Matt Captain into AC/DC, because that's what they don't like to see in the opposition to them. So 69-point win there, which I think was only, when I checked on it, was only a 2-point win. Right here, as you can see, because that Tom player ended up getting 6th, and he got 67, and our boy Mark got to 69. So a 2-point win there. Whoa, from Mark Morrow and his Taktikal Brigade. 2 beast bosses, Big Mech and Mega Armor, triple shock attack guns, a Zagrod, 2 10-man units of Snaggers, 1 Storm Boy, 4 trucks, 10 flash kits, Gretchen, a big unit, a small unit of Gretchen, 2 5-man unit of Ludus, a big unit of Ludus, followed by triple tank Busta. So that awesome combined arms combo. A little bit more dakka heavy than melee, but hey man, these bosses carrying that. And of course, everybody knows flash kits can also get stuck in, lads. So we move on to last but certainly not least, the cunning git that's bringing the kill rigs to get the hits. So we have Keaton Marschman, where he kicked it back to Index Hammer as well. So we have these gits out here that understood the core fundamentals that we've seen this whole weekend. And Keaton said, I'm kicking it back to what I know is great. So we have War Horde with the saturation of kill rigs, beast, a battle wagon, and multiple trucks. That is Transport City, man. He was just up there, up the field, really laying it down. So I wish I had notes from this get too. I was really excited to see this. Yeah, here it is. As for, he got really good high scoring games too. Now, as for the Squig City event, it was an 83-person event in the United States. So yeah, that's fantastic. Nice, healthy size player event, and to do a great job with just some meat and potatoes esque of War Horde. So He goes, oh, that's you right now. I think that's he's in chat. What's good? He said, woo, let me know if you got questions on my list. Typically, if you ever someone who watches us, hit me up before they do the stream and we can get all the dirty little secrets. But I'm glad you're here. Shout out to you, the bad axeman, Mr. Keaton Marschman. Maybe you could throw the chats in the description if that's you. So we have their missions. I meant we have 2 beast bosses followed by triple war bosses, 2 beast snagger boys followed by 1 big 20-man unit of boys, 2 10-man unit of boys, 4 trucks, a battle wagon, 1 unit of Gretchen, 1 unit of commandos, 2 kill rigs, and then 2 5-man units of knob. Boy, that's where it's at. Love to see it. Love to see that many transports, to be honest. So we have the commandos, right? I love to see the commandos because one thing you're going to see is that it's so easy to get jailed on this list. You know, so I like that he used that to keep him off. And then he has just saturation of waves, right? I like that instead of going for a third brig, he went for the wagon because a lot of the time one of those things is going to be just a little more exposed than the other. And, you know, you're going to have to kind of hold it down with some toughness. Sorry. I got distracted. So SWAT teams and then 4 trucks. 4 trucks, goodness, guys. Can you imagine deploying 7 transports of this variety and all filled with boys? And then on your go turn, on the WAAAGH turn, you're just vomiting out just orc bodies all over the battlefield. That is fantastic. Absolutely love to see it. And again, there's no Storm Boys, as we can see, but what there is 10 wall taxed gifted memberships. Whoa! So I absolutely love to see it. And of course, on this kind of list, it's about, you know, the enemy has to spend most of his assets shooting your transports down, hoping that they can focus down the contents that's inside of them, and then that they've set up enough screens that you can't wall into them and run them over. You don't see any dakka on this list. You don't see any anything other than the kill rigs a little bit themselves. So it's really much about, I'm just going to put so much assets in your face, run over your screens, and even after that, I'm going to continue momentum killing you. I'm going to tank shock to create holes if I have to. I'm going to, you know, just really just lay on the layers with this army. It's like an onion, you know? So we're going to call Keaton Marschman's onion list. So let's take a look at his path to victory. Let's go. Let my get path to victory. You're in the chat. You can just write the missions real quick in the chat for those watching, and then maybe leave a comment with it because that always matters a lot. So, first mission, he has the Eldar. We have Avatar of Cain, Farseer Skyrunner, and then Fugan. Triple Wind Riders, a Fire Dragon, Shining Spears, Shroud Runner, Striking Scorpion, 2 Vipers. Vipers, never see those. And then a War Walker, followed by 2 units of Warlock Skyrunners, 2 units of 3 units of Warp Spiders. Dang, that's a lot of units, boy. A lot of units and a lot of Wind Riders. You would think those Wind Riders would be an issue for popping those transfers, but not for those. This get right here. The Avatar of Cain. Just keep in mind, guys, mortal wounds are king here when you're trying to take the Avatar of Cain down. And you probably absolutely love that you have a war tower to just constantly keep overwatching and shooting him. And you're in the chat. Let me know what happened. How'd you deal with those triple Wind Riders? As you can see, he does have at least 1 Fire Dragon unit. Didn't bring a bunch of them. But typically the Wind Riders, from what I remember, do all right into vehicles, but maybe not. As for how this would look played out, well, think of it this way. Our boy Keaton has a lot of units. The Eldar player also has a lot of units, but somebody has mobile bunkers and the other doesn't. The other decides he's going to put the Avatar in the middle of the table, and then he's going to get dummy wad on real hard. So that's most likely what happened there. Would love to know the mission. But let's move on to game 2. And you let me know what was the going on with those Wind Riders, those 3-6 bricks in the chat, so those guys can get caught up. Then move on to the second game where he goes into the Tau Empire. So he has 2 Cadre Fireblade, Cold Star Battlesuit, Ethereal. 2 units of Breachers. Pretty potent for Orks. Pretty potent for Orks. These guys, if you're on objectives, are going to be rerolling wounds. A big unit of boys hates to see these. and you don't have a pain boy, so this would be rough. You gotta be cunning. Knife fire. Sorry. A crisis knife fight. Fire knife, sorry, fire knife battlesuit. 2 hammerhead gunships with rail guns, 3 units of crew chronivores, 1 rampager, 2 piranhas. Those are nice. Followed by 2 riptide battlesuits, and then triple stealth battlesuits with 2 units of vespids for the deep strike. Like I said, if you're ever playing against fellow Xenos, just we're gonna say generalize here. If you're playing against fellow Xenos, understand that they want to trade bodies for points just like you do. They want to control that mid table of the part of the table and beyond it. And they're willing to play attrition and kind of create space and keep you at arm's length as an orc player. So one, I think hopefully you went first. This would be a big impactful. So one, going first against these guys and understanding if you place your commandos first, you can actually block out those stealth suits, which would be problematic as well. So deploying mandos for infiltrate, nice big deal where you can, depending, I don't know what your layouts were or anything like that, but in some layouts, it's a really big deal. 2, the fact that you have so many saturation here of units, really, they want to do, I'm using it not by assembly, but Tau usually want to do damage by kind of group association, right? I'm sure there's a better way to word this, but they usually want to go around where they kind of shoot everything all together and slowly dwindle a unit between multiple units down, unless it's that one breacher unit and your Boyz unit on an objective. In that case, they can spot you and they can shoot you down and reroll wounds. That's what's sustained. That's sustained. That can go crazy. But other than that, everything else really wants to kind of dwindle you. So if you're presenting so many targets at once, running through them, and like he actually said in chat already, is that he was getting into combat with his transports and able to actually pick up some of these smaller units in the screens as well, which is really how this list works, because remember, they're all getting sustained also. So yeah, he had a 100-point win there, big old W. And then we move on to a game 3. So we have Chaos Demons. You have a blood. Oops, I didn't let you guys see. You went Chaos Demons with the Blood Legion. Okay, I have an idea what this is. We have a Bloodmaster, a Demon Prince of Chaos, Red Master, Blood Throne, Scarbrands, and the Skull Taker. You're going to see Scarbrand a lot more in this world. Bloodletters, 2 units of the. Sorry, let's see, more than that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 units of Bloodletters. Love it. And then a Brick of Nurglings. What are you guys doing there? It's a core detachment. I'm just kidding. 1 unit of Blood Crusher, 2 3-man units of Blood Crushers, followed by 3 Flesh Hound units. Oh, so just a bunch of skirmish, MSC trading, followed by a couple, 1 big old demon, Scarbrand and the Demon Prince. Runmaster, of course, can give them additional AP and 1 damage once in a while. So that's actually pretty sick of a matchup. I love to see that. They have to run into your transports. They have no guns. They have no guns, and you can fight on death. So I'm not saying it's an easy win, because they could beat the crap out of you, and there's a lot of them. And of course, there's ways that one of them could charge into a transport, and then another unit activates and piles into the unit that disembarked from your transport. So there are ways for them to get involved and kill you. And of course, if that happens, you cannot fight on death because you're battle shocked. So it's not as linear as you ought to win. I'm just saying you have the tools to win this. It really comes down to the details of the combat phase. And in this case, he got an 82-point win. So it's actually his lowest score. Was it 90? Was it 99-point win? I think I just said last one was 100, so it has to be, isn't it? Yeah, this was actually 100. So 99-point win. So it was a 99-point win there. So this one, it was a good game, but I think it came down to the details of the combat phase. So now we move on to his 4th game, which was into World Eaters. And this version of World Eaters doesn't necessarily exist anymore, from what we understand. So yeah, this is just the older Demon Prince, World Eaters. Cool. Mauler Fiends and Chaos Spawn and 8-Bound. This isn't going to play the list the same anymore. There's going to be new versions of World Eaters you got to pay attention for, but it's all good. There's just, great job by winning against them in combat, trading out. I'm not going to go over the list there, but World Eaters is a lot about when you're playing War Horde is resource allocation, because usually they're a lot more elite and bricked up than you. So yeah, great job win there. It's not really easy. That's why 82-point win. It was his lowest scoring win, but yeah, awesome, dude. Love to see it. Then we move on to his 5th and final game, where he went into Gene Stealers. Ooh, I actually freaking love this list into Gene Stealers, to be honest. So we have triple benefactors, yeah. We had a Primus, two Reductus Saboteurs, followed by 3 minimum size units of hybrids with flamers. Actually, it was 4. And then he had 5 of these big bricks of neophyte hybrids. So it's pretty crazy. We've seen this twice in this already on the stream. And then 3 units of pure strain Gene Stealers. These are their infiltration or their scouting, excuse me. These are their scouting gets. They move up the field, try to get up early game 1 charges if they can, or just screen up for them for the big bricks. And then triple Achilles Ridge Runners. This is where I actually freaking love the army. Where I, like I said, the fact that he has all these fat old transports and units that can get outside of him and beat the crap out of you means that there's not like a reliable way that he's going to really take the initiative, other than just running up and charging transports. Of course, you can do infiltration so that you can actually help offset those Gene Stealers, which would be a big problem if you had no commandos. So shout out to you, Keaton, because the fact that you looked at this and you said, well, it's a parking garage. It's either I pay for a couple dakka guns, right, or I pay for commandos. I can get a couple flamer units, try to make some fancy SWAT teams, or I can just straight up pay for commandos. That was a good call. That was a good call because if you don't have the commandos, then you're going to get jailed by something like all those Gene Stealers that I can just hold this whole value brick of I have a bunch of stuff I can vomit out into you, and then just bring a bunch of bricks down from deep shirks and reserve, and then you can never get off on them. So the fact that you could push them back, and then you can choose, well, I'm going to turn my kill rig sideways, I'm going to push them up the field, and then I'm going to make your bricks kind of charge into them, keep them off the objectives, and I'm going to beat the crap out of you everywhere else. I like to see it. I thought you did a great job. Of course, you can do that with trucks too. So you just have so much table space with that. Did he even have like ridge runners? Okay, at least he had a couple of ridge runners, right? But then you're like, well, I'm gonna overwatch you with the door tower. No, I'm just kidding. But you could, and then even just them knowing that could be an issue. So 100-point win there. Absolutely love it because that's how you got to treat Gene Stealers. You got to run up on them, take up all their space, and get a nice 100-point W on him for that. So great job in that, Mr. Mark Keaton Marschman. So 100-point win on that last one. So he got 2 100s and then a 99. Boy, you were going hard right there, man. I absolutely love it. I wish we spoke before stream. Of course, if you're in Discord or on Facebook, Mr. The Bad Axeman right here, what's up? That hit me up. We could talk sometime about this. You know, other people would like it, so it'd be cool. Great job. And that's his one comment he said here. He said, the commandos were great every game. Chilled so many people turn 1, including the Lord of Skulls. Oh, yeah, I love that, dude. And your picture destroying a Necron, I freaking love that, too. That's a cunning get. Understanding that even though he's playing War Horde, and he's just going to go for the table space, the controlling, the presence, the ability to put the pressure on the enemy instead. I love that. I love that he just was like, I'm going to take that risk and play for those. I don't think everybody has to do that. It is very pilot dependent because it does take like some reps and understanding of deployments. But I do think that Ork players should very much consider it as the meta adapts, because infiltration, scouts, and stuff like that are such a big deal in all of 40K. So shout out to you, Mr. Keaton. I'm glad to see you here. And yeah, I'd hope to see you again in the future. And then we have our boy right here, Mr. Murdermouth Blood Axe. He said, Ork hobby is best. Your problem, second army is a pain. Yeah, Orks are not a problem, but I do focus that I do usually suggest that you focus at least on growing them slowly, because it usually takes a lot. All right. So that being said, let's say this list one more time. We have 2 beast bosses, triple war bosses, 2 beast bosses, 2-piece snagger boys with those 2 beast bosses, a 20-man unit of boys, 2 10-man unit of boys, 4 trucks and a battle wagon, and 2 kill rigs, plus a commando, Gretchen, and then 2 5-man units of knobs. Boy, this went crazy. Can you imagine the table space here? Enemies are just like, damn, what do I shoot? Oh, man, it's coming down the field at me too. Oh. And then they're like, I got this super brick. And they throw it at you, and you're like, I just surrounded with 20 boys. I don't even care. And everybody else keeps running up the field. Oh, man, I love that. This, even though I'm not playing War Horde right now, this kind of War Horde list in the end. And the one we covered earlier, were definitely calling out to me, because you guys really understood the identity of Orks and the War Horde itself and just pulled it from its grassroots, took advantage of the WAAAGH changes, and the fact that they didn't see us coming. So with that being said, be on the lookout for our videos, speaking of the Ork detachments, and our competition, paint competition videos, our Fix Our List that we do every week. If you're a channel member or a Patreon member, be sure to hit me up. You guys get priority on everything. So with that being said, there's only one thing to keep in mind. Is don't cross our wall, because we'll knock your teeth out. Ooh.